I am a man of honor, integrity, and promise. I pursue all righteousness. I love my family. I will not put my family in harm's way. There is nothing that will keep me from doing the right thing. I am an ambassador of hope and a man of discipline. I am a man worth following. I am a TYRO.
Welcome to TYRO TV. I'm Ron TYRO.
And I'm Cathy TYRO. And if you don't know who we are, let me tell you a little bit about us. We spent 15 years navigating through the prison system while Ron was incarcerated. And in spite of that obstacle, in spite of that hardship, our family grew stronger and more productive and healthier. And so now we get to go back and we get to help people coming behind us learn how to overcome the obstacles of incarceration.
And out of that experience, we were able to create a curriculum called TYRO. And what a TYRO is, it's a man worth following, a leader, an apprentice, someone learning something new. And what we want to do today is talk to you about what it means to be a TYRO. What do you go through in life when you find yourself in prison to get to a place where you can be taken at your word?
Last week, we talked about the cycle of incarceration and breaking those cycles of incarceration. We talked about the first 5 phases that lead you to a decision point, and then we talked about the next 5 phases if you've made a positive decision for change. Now, this week, we're really going to hit hard on the first 2 phases.
And the first 2 phases is shock and denial. And when we talk about hitting hard, you really got to understand what you're going through in order to get to where you want to go. Because a lot of times in life, we could be going through something and we could think that it is what it is, and we just write it off like it's nothing. But the truth is, nothing just happens to happen. It's happening to us for a reason. And if we can recognize it and even embrace the experience and allow it to be its teacher that it's supposed to be, we can grow and become better, not bitter.
So stay tuned. We'll be right back and share with you the deep things about shock and denial.
TYRO Dads will help you to see who you really are on the inside by coming to terms with your past, present, and future. You will begin to move forward by using your time on the inside to transform yourself. We know you are not the only one serving time. Your family is too. Overcoming the issues that existed prior to and during incarceration are often more than many families can survive. TYRO Dads has a unique method of reaching and healing families based on Ron and Cathy TYRO's own personal experience with incarceration. TYRO Dads works exclusively with incarcerated fathers who have minor children. The program lasts for 10 weeks and focuses on intensive character development. You'll be taught to take responsibility for your actions, to own it. You will be prepared to overcome the obstacles of your incarceration and transition back into your home and community, both successfully and permanently. Upon successful completion of this program, you will earn the title of TYRO, which means a warrior, someone learning something new. You'll be one of the honored, a man worth following.
If you think you have what it takes to be a TYRO or just want to know more, contact your local Ridge Project facilitator or your caseworker.
Welcome back to TYRO TV. I'm Cathy TYRO.
And I'm Ron TYRO.
And this week, we're talking about the first 2 phases of the cycle of incarceration, and that is shock and denial.
You know, as we look at the word shock and we try to get an understanding of really what that is, or what is that word activation, and what does it look like in motion, and you think about an impact that affects everything around you. The shock, even, you know, if you look at an earthquake, they talk about an aftershock, even after the initial target or the initial impact of whatever takes place, there's an aftershock. And so when we talk about shock, when a man first goes to prison or goes to county jail or first gets indicted, you know, all these things, you can look all the way back and then you start seeing what we qualify as being an aftershock. I remember when they came, they put the cuffs on me and took me in the car, put me in the back seat, you know, the mind battle I'm having. Oh my gosh, what is going on here? And then they take me to the county jail, and for the first time when you walk through the first gate and you'll hear it, and you're like, you're tripping, man. You're just thinking about what happened. What did I do? What happened in my life that caused me to be put in a place where now I no longer get to dictate which direction I go, which way I get to turn?
Well, I remember that the first time that I really saw that shock on you was when you were actually convicted, when the jury had handed down the guilty verdict. And walking over to you, it was just like everything was surreal. Like you couldn't really even see me. You were looking past me. You were looking through me.
Well, it's like a world that didn't exist within a world. And I mean, you're taking it all the way back to when we were in the courtroom and the verdict of guilty was pronounced,
Right.
and I had to experience that type of reality when I wasn't prepared to experience something like this. At least I thought I wasn't. But we know the saying, if what doesn't kill you will make you stronger. And that's literally what happened to us, because this type of shock, from guilty to county jail, to reception center, I mean, that type of experience over and over again, because you never know what's coming the next day, because somebody else is in control of your life. Somebody else is telling you.
Yeah, and so everything is surreal. It's like you're just looking around like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm here. What in the world just happened? And everything in you is shaken. And I remember having those visits with you, just like, I can't believe this happened. I can't believe I'm here.
But I'm wearing a mask. You know, I don't want nobody to know I'm freaking out, right? I want everybody to see me that I'm hanging around with, or that's in the day room or in the same facility I'm at, that, you know what, I can't let them see that I'm scared. I can't let them see that I'm afraid of this, what we call the unknown. But the truth is, everybody in this situation that I found myself in was having the same experience. Even if you've been locked up more than once, you're still going to go through the type of impact of the unknown. And it's a shock to, at least it was for me, for the first time somebody told me, lock it down. Somebody said, you know, strip. The first time somebody said, bend over, you know, and spread them. You know, when they did the big shakedown, those type of experiences that a man has for the very first time. And it's, I mean, even from one prison to another, when they give you this shakedown of your life, when they run their fingers through your hair, when they make you put your feet in the back so they can see between your toes. This type of experience is not normal. But I really believe it is meant to shock you into waking up. Because our experiences led us to a point in our life where we had to experience this.
So what did it take, Ron, for you to move from the place of shock, to go to the next phase of denial? Like what was that process?
I don't necessarily believe it was something that I actually did.
It was just natural.
It was a natural occurrence that as I went through the shock, the next phase that I went through was, I can't believe I'm here. I cannot believe I'm living in an environment that looks like this. And I was just, in fact, some of the things I was doing, you know, I'm acting like I'm really happy. And I wasn't happy, but I got this mask on. Part of the things that will qualify, if you're not sure where you're at, if you don't think you're in denial, if you're wearing a mask and not embracing the experience you're having, and you're trying to act like you're on a college campus, well, you're in denial.
Yeah,
you are not on a college campus. You know, I remember going from a level of security that was pretty strict to a level of security that was more free, and seeing the difference of attitude between the men that were on a more lockdown basis to men who were more free to roam the prison yard, and seeing a difference in attitude where they were more relaxed and laid back, and where there's more freedom, to where the men who were on a more lockdown regiment, you know, they were more alert. They're more awake to their environment, to where if it's a lesser security, they're more unconscious of where they're at. They're forgetting they're in prison because they've become accustomed to, and they've adapted to, or they've accepted this environment as something that almost a permanent setting.
Right. So that was more denial. Denial that is that what you're saying? That they're in the actual prison, that it's actually unnatural, that it's actually something that they should be like, whoa, I need to do everything I can to get out of here. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because you can see some of them, they instead of what they might be thinking, they're progressing because they're not getting involved in violent actions, but really they're regressing because they're like, you know, the word that's being used a lot in our culture today is zombie. And you can see the zombie apocalypse, if you will, inside a prison, because people are just doing every day. The routine has become so routine that they're no longer growing. They're just...
So they're in denial that I'm in prison.
Because you have to experience, I can't believe I'm here. But then you gotta, when you're in denial, and you gotta be conscious of it, because then you can actually say to yourself, well, what am I gonna do about it? What am I going to do? Now that I'm
That's a
here,
great
I'm
point.
not going to wear a mask anymore. I need to be real so I'll never experience this again. So you got to let denial have its perfect work too, also. You know, as a TYRO, we say in our declaration, pain and suffering are our greatest teachers. And we really believe that. Because if it wasn't for pain and suffering, we would not be who we are today.
Right.
And we really believe that they are our greatest teachers. And if we allow this experience, the shock, boom, you get hit, you get impacted, you're thrown into custody, you're thrown into jail, you might even find yourself in the hole. Whatever happens to you in this environment that causes you to, you know, you're at a state of mind of where I can't, oh my gosh, believe I'm here. Now what?
Right.
You have to let shock have its way.
So that you can move from the zombie state into the what's next. Now what do I do with this?
Now, what's next? Because if you're stuck in the state of zombie, you begin to embrace this concept called I wish, I shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? And you know the saying, you don't want to shoulda on yourself.
Right.
Because if you're in that state, and guys, you can see some of these guys, they come in normal, but all of a sudden they're taking medication and they're on this stuff because they couldn't adapt to their environment. They went through such a shock and denial that they never went past that they couldn't function in this facility to where they could thrive in this facility.
In the right way.
In the right way.
Right. It is preparation for leaving the facility.
And never coming back. You know, proper preparation prevents poor performance, we say as a TYRO. So you got to prepare yourself for once after you recognize I'm going through this shock, I'm freaking out, I'm in this place. You know, somebody's in your face telling you to wake up, go to bed, lock it down, 15 minutes. You know, it's meant to do what it does.
Right.
And it's meant to make us better, not bitter.
And the same phases of incarceration, the same phases that you were going through, we were going through on the outside. So when we come back from this break, we'll share more about what it's like on the outside as we go through and navigate through the phases of incarceration. So stay tuned.
Playing catch, basketball, laughing and enjoying each other's company. These are all normal things on the outside, but many times are missed in a visitation setting. TYRO Dads brings the same fun experience to the inside through Family Days. As a TYRO Dad, you have the opportunity to participate in this fantastic event. Family Day is designed to allow fathers and families to engage with each other through activities designed to stimulate communication, learning, and play. Family Days will not only be a highlight for you, but for your children as well. The Ridge Project has strategically developed Family Day as an opportunity to help you connect with your child throughout your separation and help both of you develop skills to continue building your relationship when you return home.
If you think you have what it takes to be a TYRO or just want to know more, contact your local Ridge Project facilitator or your caseworker.
Welcome back to TYRO TV. I'm Ron Tiarina.
And I'm Cathy Tiarina.
And we've been talking about breaking the cycle of incarceration. Basically 10 phases and what it takes to really become successful despite of where you're at.
And so really today we're really focusing in pretty hard on the first two phases, and that is shock and denial. And so, Ron, you talked a lot the last segment about what it was like for you and what it's like for the guys that go through our program as far as the first phases of that shock and denial.
And what I'm hoping is by our discussion here, Hun, is that we can get the guys to be provoked to talk among themselves about where they're at and where they're going. So as we talk, please, our goal and our mission is for you guys to create a dialogue that you can be conscious of where you're at. Therefore, you can help others grow and get past these cycles so they can too become better and TYROs.
Right. And now also, we really want you to understand that while you're going through the same phases, your family is going through those phases.
Yeah.
And so out here, when Ron first went into prison, I mean, the shock was just like, I can't believe, it was like this numbness just kind of engulfed me. And I remember driving home, I don't even remember how I got home, just kind of on autopilot. Get in the car, turn the car on. This is the last thing I remember until I got to my driveway 45 minutes later. And so this shock, it hits you in waves. It's like, I can't believe it's real. My world has just collapsed around me. how am I ever going to pick up the pieces?
How are you going to tell people,
How am I
face
going to
people?
tell people? Yeah, I mean, but I wasn't even there yet. I mean, it was just like, how am I going to pick up the pieces? Like, how can this even be happening to me? And how am I going to tell my kids? So this wave after wave of shock. And you're right, the kind of the navigation from shock to denial, you don't really do anything. You don't purposely say, okay, I'm going to move to denial, right? It's just sort of a natural progression. But being able to recognize that, wait a minute, I'm in shock. This is totally shock that, I'm walking through life like I'm viewing life, like it's completely surreal. Things are happening around me. I'm just on autopilot. I'm just functioning because I have to function. I'm breathing because it's just something I do, not because I'm feeling anything. I'm not feeling anything. And so I remember having checklists like, don't forget to, get up. And like literally I would write these things down. Feed the boys, do the dishes, make the beds. Like the simplest life tasks, the things that I would just do before, it's like I had to make lists or I just wouldn't do it because that shock was almost paralyzing. And I also remember moving from the shock to the denial. And for me, the denial phase looked like this. Okay, and now Ron you got a sentence of 14 to 25 years. But here I am, a couple of months into it, and I'm saying things to Blake and Brandon like, well, we're not going to go see a movie until Dad comes home. We're not going to go on family vacation until Dad comes home. Well, we're going to save that activity until Dad comes home. So it was basically like I was operating like I could put my whole life on hold.
Waiting for me.
Waiting for you to come home, right? Like you weren't really going to be in there for 14 to 25 years. Really, you were going to be home any minute. So next week when you came home, which was, ridiculous. I'm in complete denial that this is really happening to us. And so I'm functioning as telling Blake and Brandon, telling the boys all the time, they're like, hey, Mom, let's go do this. No, we're not going to do that till Dad comes home. When Dad comes home, then we're going to do this.
So you were putting them in a state of where, you know what, your life too is on hold.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Yeah. And so as I'm writing letters to Ron and I'm saying things like, well, I'm not going to get my hair cut until you come home.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to change until you come home.
And I would say, well, I hope you're brushing your teeth.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, go ahead and brush your teeth, babe.
Don't stop doing that.
Yeah, don't stop doing that. But it looking back, at the time, I didn't realize that what I was doing and how I was living my life really was a phase and a part of this incarceration cycle that I'm in denial. And had I stayed there, had I stayed in that my whole life is on pause, then our children would be broken, our relationships would be broken, because I would be stuck in that same state I was and not progressing. And so whenever you don't progress, you remain stagnant, you actually begin to deteriorate.
Well, I remember on the visits when you guys would come and see me and the boys would want to laugh and play, and really we were living a life of pretend. We're going to pretend that everything is okay. And that's denial. Instead of really talking about it and finding the place to have that courageous conversation with you and I, and really having that courageous conversation where we can tell each other, I don't know when I'm coming home. What do you want to do?
Right.
And that's a hard place to be at and a hard conversation to have because you don't know what is going to be said.
Right.
And
I really didn't know what to do with my life other than wait till Ron came home so we could be whole again, we could be a family, then we could work out dreams and we could figure things out. The very thought that this might really be 14 to 25 years and that I was going to have to really make some tough decisions on the outside to move forward and to live in a way that also included Ron never entered my mind when I was in the phase of denial. And so when I was in the phase of denial, I was still, in this, surely he'll be home next week. Like, all I got to do is get through tomorrow. All I got to get through is next week. And so I'm like calling the attorney. So have you heard anything? When is he coming home? You got to get him out now. You got to get him out now. Not even acknowledging the process of the legal system, not even acknowledging where I really was.
And well, not even acknowledging the stories before our story of all the people who've experienced this, and not really have us having understanding that, hey, this has happened before.
Right.
And this is what it looks
alone.
like. And we're not alone.
Right.
But we didn't have those type of resources to help us navigate, to tell us, listen, this is what you're going through, and this is how long this process takes. Because getting past shock and getting past denial is not overnight. The shock experience that we had, because I mean, on the visits, Cathy and I remember, hon, when you would come to see me, that you and I, we both had that look of the deer in the headlights, and we're looking at each other. I'm 25 and you're 24, and we're like, oh my gosh, what do we
just
do?
happened?
How do we act? I mean, how do you behave in a prison visit room? You got a guard over you, and you can't, and you're afraid to hold.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to hold your hand?
Yeah.
Am I allowed to talk to you? Can I get this close to you?
Yeah.
All these.
What if
type
I
of things.
touch your face?
What
Am I
will
gonna get in
happen? Am I going to get
trouble?
in trouble? We're like in another, and I know you guys can relate to this, from your very first visit, and I'm trying to tell her, it's okay, baby. It's going to be all right. Because where do I get this from?
Right.
I'm getting this from guys in the prison who I'm watching, and I'm trying to learn from guys too who may be going through a different phase that I'm not conscious of.
Right.
You know, or where they're at. And then,
so as we go through our phases, it's really important to recognize the impact that it has on our children. And so when we come back, we're going to really talk about the impact it has on your children and how to help them navigate through those phases, even when you yourself are trying to navigate.
So hold on and don't change this dial. Hey, listen, watch what we're going to give you, because we promise you this will help you strengthen your relationship with your children, with your family. When you're conscious of what you're going through, you can become better, not bitter.
Completion of TYRO Dads is just the beginning of the opportunities available to you. As a TYRO Dad, you will be eligible to participate in workforce strengthening services to help prepare you for employment and open the doors to economic stability for you and your family. The Workforce Strengthening Program starts with job ethics training. Once completed, you may be eligible to receive training to acquire your commercial driver's license while still inside prison. If getting a CDL is not for you, then there is also a welding training program you may be eligible for. As more programs are being added, there really is something for almost everyone.
If you think you have what it takes to be a TYRO or just want to know more, contact your local Ridge Project facilitator or your caseworker.
Welcome back to TYRO TV. I'm Cathy TYRO.
And I'm Ron TYRO. And today we're talking about the cycles of incarceration and how to break them and how to get past whatever cycle you're in and what phase you're in. And we've been talking about shock and denial,
which are the two first phases that you're going to go through as you enter the system.
Well, we talked first about me, then we talked about Cathy on the outside, me on the inside, and now we want to talk about our children. You know, our sons were 3 and 4, is that right? 3 and 4 when I went to prison, and I can't even imagine what they were going through at that time when Dad was no longer part of their lives, you know. And Cathy firsthand got to experience them at home, but I would get to experience them in the visits and help navigate and help for all of us to come to a place of where we can grow from this, but not being conscious.
Right. And I remember the when you first went to prison, and I told Blake and Brandon that you were in prison, it didn't really hit them. They didn't really understand what that meant. They were scared because they knew I was upset and I was scared, but they didn't really understand what that meant. So the shock that was hitting me wasn't hitting them at that point, just fear. And so then as time went on, you know, and weeks into it, then they're like, wait a minute, Daddy's not home. Where's Dad? Then the shock of not having you in their lives on a daily basis began to shake their world. Well, so they were like, you know, 2 steps behind where we were, because their understanding and the impact on their lives was about 2 steps behind where we were.
Well, I remember the first time my son Blake, I'm talking to him from the jail cell, and I called home that night, and I remember he asked me, Daddy, are you in jail? And I lied. I told him, no, son, I'm not in jail. Who told you such a thing like that? And I don't remember what he said, but I lied. That's all I remembered, that I just lied to my son, and I told him I wasn't in jail. You know, here's denial. Here's part of the shock. And I don't want him to experience this. But when I found out later in that phone call, Cathy had told him that I went to jail, and I didn't know that. And so I told myself, well, if he asks me again, I'll go ahead and tell him the truth. You know, I'll tell him the truth. I'm in jail. And the next night I call home, and sure enough, Blake asked me, he says, Dad, are you in jail? And I said, Blake, I am in jail, and I'm sorry I lied to you. And just that was a breakthrough, but I didn't recognize it as a breakthrough at that time. But it set a precedent in our relationship to always tell the truth and always be honest.
Even though the truth is hard to hear sometimes. And so we have to create the moment of safety where your children feel safe, where then you can tell them the hard truths. So you don't want to tell them the truth in the midst of chaos and turmoil, and there's a million things going on around you, and they're already worked up or upset or feeling insecure, and then say, and your dad's not coming home for 14 years. I mean, that's a terrible thing to do to a child. So instead, you create a safe environment where you sit down and maybe you've just had hot cocoa, or you've said, hey, we're going to have a meeting tonight. We're going to talk about things that are impacting our family. And then you say, you know how Dad's not here, and you know how we had to go visit Dad. Well, we're going to be doing that for a while, guys. And so we're going to have to really make sure that we're writing letters and finding different ways to connect with Dad and keep you connected to Dad.
And this is a hard place to be, because this is where now you have to grow up.
And you're experiencing your own shock and denial. And so you have to put that on the shelf. And you have to think about, okay, what do I need to do? And if you have to write it down on a piece of paper, this is what I have to do to protect my children, then that's what you do. And so then you put action behind that. Blake and Brandon, as they went through first the shock of, oh my gosh, Dad's not here. And I remember, they began to just kind of act out and just be ornery and break things and fight with each other. And then they went into the denial. And so, even though we would say, well, Daddy's coming home soon, but we don't know what that's going to look like. So it might be when you're 8. It might be when you're 9. So then they would start saying things like, well, my dad's coming home next week. Or, you know what, my dad might be home by this time. And part of that really was because they didn't have a concept of time, but part of it was that denial that our family isn't really going to be separated in this distance for that long.
Because they had no understanding of the process that it takes for somebody to actually come home, with the courts and everything else that are involved in making that, of me coming home, a reality.
Right. And so my dad's in prison. So, and then also helping them frame that prison isn't a place that you want to be, because their thoughts are, well, my dad's in prison. Remember Blake and Brandon, well, that's where I want to be because that's where my dad is. And so having to navigate through that and going to prison visiting rooms and telling them, no, guys, you don't want to stay here. And Ron telling them, no, guys, this is not where you want to be, was part of helping move them in a place of recognizing what the circumstance really, truly is that we find ourselves in.
And it's difficult. It's difficult to tell your sons or your little girls that that you're not coming home. Man. And guys, as you think about and how you navigate, and you're going to have what we qualify as being a courageous conversation. You got to have that. A courageous conversation with yourself, with your wife, with the mother of your children, and with your children. If you really want us to help set people free that you care about, you got to tell the truth. You're in a place you don't want to be, but you're going to become better because of it.
That's right. So stay tuned. We'll be right back in just a few moments.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
When I get all steamed up, then I shout.
Tip me over and pour me out. Oh. The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Cheers. Take time to be a dad today.
If you think you have what it takes to be a TYRO or just want to know more, contact your local Ridge Project facilitator or your caseworker.
Welcome back to TYRO TV. I'm Ron Tiarina.
And I'm Cathy Tiarina. And today we've been talking about the first 2 phases that you're going to go through in a period when you go into prison, and then how that relates to breaking that cycle of incarceration.
And it's a journey. It's hard work, but it's possible. Because if we can do it, so can you. The first 2 phases we talked about was shock and denial. And we talked about my experience and a little bit about Cathy's experience and really our children's experience. The bottom line, guys, is recognizing where you're at so you can get to where you need to be.
And it's important to note that you can't avoid these phases. These are things that just happen. They're a natural part of being in the system, and it's a natural part of going through a life-changing, dramatic event. So you find something happened, something changed, wow, the shock. And then after that shock is the denial. And then after the denial, we're going to talk about next week as we come back, we're going to talk about the next 2 phases of incarceration and breaking that incarceration cycle.
Which is grief and anger. Is it in that order?
Yep, anger and grief.
Anger and grief. But really, guys, if we can leave something with you, it's because the quicker you can recognize this and embrace this experience, the quicker you can move on to the next phase, because your children need your help. Your children need your help to recognize this so they can embrace the experience and they can grow and move on. Because if they get stuck into one of these phases, then this has a likelihood of repeating this same experience again, just like if a man goes to prison more than once.
So your job, dads, your job, moms, is to lead your children into paths of righteousness and hope and peace and success. And in order to do that, you have to recognize the phases that you're going to be going through so that you can help them overcome the obstacles that those phases are going to bring and make sure that they don't end up stuck there.
So thank you for watching TYRO TV, and thank you for letting us be part of your journey. Until next time,
we are rooting for you.
I am a man of honor.
I am a man of integrity.
I am a man of faith. I am the antidote.
I am a man of discipline. I am a leader.
I am strong.
I am a man worth following.
I am a TYRO.